Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. The U.S. Congress has certified Democrat Joe Biden's Electoral College victory in a joint session. President Donald Trump said, though he disagrees with the outcome of the election, but there will be an orderly transition on January 20th. Earlier, 4 people died after Trump's supporters stormed the Capitol Hill, prompting a curfew. Police said they have arrested 52 rioters as they smashed windows and scaled walls of the Capitol building. Pakistan has conducted a successful test flight of indigenously developed guided multi-launch rocket system. Military's media wing says Fateh 1 is capable of delivering a conventional warhead up to a range of 140 kilometers. The ISPR says the system will give Pak Army capability of precision target engagement deep in enemy territory. Tens of thousands of farmers on tractors have blocked the main expressway near the Indian capital of New Delhi. It is one of the biggest shows of strength since they began a sit-in against 3 farm laws more than a month ago. This comes a day ahead of the next round of talks between the farmers and the central government. The Taliban have killed 7 Afghan soldiers in an attack on a checkpost in northern Kunduz province. A provincial council member said 2 other Afghan troops were wounded in the raid. Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid said they captured 2 commanders and 7 soldiers during the attack. The global number of COVID-19 infections has surpassed 87 million with over 1.8 million deaths. Britain has recorded highest daily cases with over 62,000 new infections for a second day in a row as its caseload tops 2.8 million. China has reported its highest 63 single-day COVID-19 infections since July as authorities try to curb the outbreak near Beijing. Meanwhile, Pakistan has registered nearly 2,500 new cases and 50 deaths overnight, taking the toll to over 10,500. And in football, Manchester City have outclassed Manchester United 2-0 in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup at Old Trafford. Second-half goals from John Stones and Fernandinho sealed City's victory. They will now face Tottenham Hotspur in the final at Wembley on April 25th. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. The U.S. Congress has certified Democrat Joe Biden's Electoral College victory in a joint session. President Donald Trump said, though he disagrees with the outcome of the election, but there will be an orderly transition on January 20th. Earlier, 4 people died after President Donald Trump's supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol, prompting a curfew. More in this report.
Chaos, confusion, and violence ensued at Capitol Hill as the U.S. Congress gathered to debate and authenticate President-elect Joe Biden's victory. Thousands of armed pro-Trump rioters clashed with the police, smashed windows, infiltrated, and occupied the Capitol. Police said they have arrested 52 rioters as they smashed windows and scaled walls of the building. Biden blasted the storming and called on President Donald Trump to step up and renounce the violence.
And this god-awful display today is bringing home to every Republican and Democrat and Independent in the nation that we must step up. This is the United States of America. There's never, ever, 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 ever been a thing we've tried to do that we've done it together. We've not been able to do it. So, President Trump, step up.
President Trump, after a while, called on his supporters to back off but did not condemn the infiltration and violence. Facebook and Twitter have temporarily blocked Trump's accounts for provoking violence. Reconvening after an hours-long delay, Vice President Mike Pence, along with scores of other legislators, condemned Trump supporters.
Today was a dark day in the history of the United States Capitol. But thanks to the swift efforts of U.S. Capitol Police, federal, state, and local law enforcement, the violence was quelled. The Capitol is secured, and the people's work continues. We condemn the violence that took place here in the strongest possible terms.
After debate in the joint session, the Senate and the House of Representatives rejected 2 objections to the tally. Biden secured 306 votes, while Trump got 232. Joe Biden will be sworn as the 46th U.S. president on January 20th.
For more on this, we are joined by Dr. Carl Cavalli, a political analyst from Georgia. Sir, thank you very much for your time. Sir, a mob of Trump supporters breached the U.S. House of Representatives and Senate chambers. 4 people have died on U.S. Capitol grounds. Do you think this violence will further escalate after the Congress session certifying President-elect Joe Biden concludes?
That's really hard to tell at this moment. I think it has been it's quieted down a bit. I don't know whether it will pick up again overnight or whether it will pick up again tomorrow. It really, it was a riot. There was vandalism, and there were casualties, unfortunately. But most of the people that made it into the Capitol were simply rioters and vandals, and they simply wandered around and they took pictures of each other and things like that. I think they were fairly aimless once they got inside the Capitol. So I certainly hope that it doesn't escalate, but it may still be too early to tell.
Dr. Carl, will legal action be taken against President Trump for inciting unrest and carnage in the Capitol in his last days in office?
Well, that's an interesting question. There are rumors circulating. There's talk that some cabinet members are discussing the 25th Amendment, which is a provision for having the vice president and the cabinet remove the president. I don't know how accurate those rumors are. There's at least one member of the House of Representatives that has introduced articles of impeachment against the president. That usually takes quite a long time. It would not be the most efficient solution for a president with only 2 weeks remaining in office. And he will certainly be subject to prosecution once he leaves office. It is possible he may attempt to pardon himself. That's a bit of legal limbo. We are not sure whether presidents can pardon themselves or not. That certainly, all those things are on the drawing board right now.
Dr. Carl, how does this impact President Trump's standing in the Republican Party and his re-election bid?
I think you're starting to see a significant break between President Trump and the Republican Party. Up to now, at best, you saw many former members of Congress, former administration officials criticizing the president. But many people in Congress, people like Ted Cruz of Texas and Graham of South Carolina, who were once president's rivals for election in 2016, have thrown their support behind him and have refused to criticize him. I don't think Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz are going to break with him completely anytime yet, but you are starting to see there have been a rash of low-level resignations within the White House tonight. There are a number of Republicans that have openly criticized the president and have gone to the press. So I think what you're seeing is that things are changing. The president's support, which was once near unanimous among Republicans, is starting to fall apart.
Dr. Carl Cavalli, sir, thank you very much for talking to Indus News. And now moving on to the Democratic Party of President-elect Joe Biden has won control of the Senate with 2 victories in the state of Georgia. Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff defeated Republican incumbents Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, respectively. Democrats will control the Senate, the House of Representatives, and the White House for the first time since 2009. However, the Senate will split 50-50 between the 2 parties, giving Vice President-elect Kamala Harris a tie-breaking vote. The result is a severe blow for outgoing Republican President Donald Trump. Pakistan has conducted a successful test flight of indigenously developed guided multi-launch rocket system. In a statement, the military's media wing said Fateh-1 is capable of delivering a conventional warhead up to a range of 140 kilometers. It said the system will give Pakistan's army capability of precision target engagement deep in enemy territory. President Arif Alvi and Prime Minister Imran Khan have congratulated the army and scientists on the successful flight test. Chairman Joint Chief of Staff Committee General Nadeem Raza and Chief of the Army Staff General Qamar Javed Bajwa have also extended felicitations. Tens of thousands of farmers on tractors have blocked the main expressway near the Indian capital, New Delhi. It is one of the biggest shows of strength since they began a sit-in against 3 farm laws more than a month ago. The march started from protest sites of Singhu, Tikri and Ghazipur borders amid tight security. This comes a day ahead of the next round of talks between the farmers and the central government. The union leaders said the farmers participated in the march with over 3,500 tractors and trolleys. They termed today's march a rehearsal for the tractor parade on January 26th. The parade would aim to march into Delhi from parts of Haryana, Punjab and Uttar Pradesh. The Taliban have killed 7 Afghan soldiers in an attack on a checkpost in the country's northern Kunduz province. A member of Provincial Council said 2 other troops were wounded in the raid. Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid said they captured 2 commanders and 7 soldiers during the attack. He said the Taliban fighters also destroyed 2 armored personnel carriers and seized weapons. Islamabad has called on Kabul to take immediate action against terrorist groups finding sanctuaries in Afghanistan. Pakistan's Foreign Office spokesperson Zahid Hafiz Chaudhry said this in a statement. Chaudhry said terrorists from inside Afghanistan fired on a military post in Mohmin district. He said Pakistan's troop responded promptly and a soldier was martyred in the exchange of fire. He said Islamabad strongly condemns the use of Afghan soil by terrorists for activities against Pakistan and its security forces. China says it would take all necessary steps to safeguard its sovereignty and security interest. In a press briefing, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying said Beijing condemned U.S. interference in its internal affairs. Hua said the U.S. must pay a heavy price for its mistakes. This follows U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's comments on the recent arrest of 53 people in Hong Kong. In a statement, Pompeo said Washington may sanction those involved in the crackdown. He said the U.S. will send its ambassador to the United Nations, Kelly Craft, to visit Taiwan. Syria says it has intercepted and shot down multiple Israeli missiles. State media said the missiles were fired from the occupied Syrian Golan Heights, but Israeli media outlets claimed that the missiles struck the El Kiswa area south of the capital and the town of Al-Dimas west of Damascus. There are no reports of life or material damage yet. Israel's latest assault comes just a week after a round of airstrikes in western Syria, which killed a Syrian soldier and wounded several others. Libya's government of national accord and the Libyan National Army led by Khalifa Haftar have conducted a fresh prisoner swap. A member of China's military committee said Haftar's forces freed 27 prisoners in exchange of 8 members. He said the swap was carried out under supervision of 5+5 Libyan Joint Military Commission. He said the exchange took place in the Shivrif area south of the Libyan capital, Tripoli. Libya's warring parties announced a permanent ceasefire in October last year, brokered by the UN in Geneva. The ceasefire was also facilitated by the Joint Military Committee, which includes 5 representatives from each of the rival parties. Germany says Iran's uranium enrichment at 20% is a massive violation of the nuclear deal. Foreign Minister Heiko Maas termed the breach unacceptable. Maas met foreign ministers from Jordan and Sweden in Amman as part of the Stockholm Initiative. The initiative aims at reversing the global trend towards global nuclear rearmament. He said there was a new opportunity for a deal with Iran as under President-elect Joe Biden and U.S. might join the deal again. But he added that it was too early to judge the expectations of the incoming U.S. administration.
We believe there is also a new opportunity for the nuclear deal with Iran. The president-elect has so far proven to be open to the idea the United States might join the deal once more. In the coming weeks after January, it will very soon be about exploring the possibilities in that sense, what the expectations of the United States are. So, this is why we can only tell Iran that it would be very dangerous to risk spoiling this opportunity.
A South Korean delegation led by Foreign Ministry's Middle East Director Ko Kyung-sok has left for Iran to secure the release of Seoul's tankers seized by Tehran. It will meet the Iranian Foreign Ministry officials to negotiate the vessel's release. Foreign Ministry spokesman said the South Korean envoy to Iran spoke over the phone with the detained sailors and confirmed their safety. He said the sailors assured the ambassador of no issues with Iran's treatment of the crew members in the process of the seizure. Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps seized a South Korean tanker amid tensions between the two over Tehran's frozen money in South Korean banks. However, Iran has assured multiple times that it seized the ship for violating maritime environmental laws rather than detaining the crew as hostage. North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un has vowed to boost the country's military capabilities. He made the remarks at the 8th Party Congress, which began on Tuesday in Pyongyang. Kim said the expansion in defense capabilities aims to ensure a peaceful environment. He also put forth goals for realizing the desired higher level of defense capabilities. The announcement comes despite international sanctions and pressure over the country's nuclear weapons program. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The global number of COVID-19 cases has surpassed 87 million, with more than 1.88 million deaths. Britain has recorded the highest daily infections for the second straight day, with over 62,000 cases overnight. Nationwide, the tally of infections has topped 2.8 million. More in this report.
As global coronavirus cases shoot through the roof, the pandemic is projected to get even worse in the coming months before it starts getting any better. The World Health Organization has warned of a hard road ahead before vaccines can turn the tides against the pandemic. Mexico has reported record infections in a day as vaccination efforts continue at a very slow pace. Hospitals in Peru and Bolivia are overflowing as fears of a devastating second wave grow, while health experts in the U.S. state of Arizona warn it has become the hot spot of the world. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has forecast that deaths in the country can hit 48,000 by January 30.
UK variant in the U.S. in at least 5 states, and I would be surprised if that number doesn't grow pretty rapidly. People travel around. This should not be a surprise. That does seem to be a virus that has about a 70% higher ability to transmit from one person to the next. And you can see how, therefore, it has been very successful in dominating what's happening in the UK. And we should think about where that's going to take us in the U.S. as well.
The European Union has approved the Moderna vaccine, making it the second drug to be cleared for general use across the Eurozone. But anxiety continues to mount over the slow progress of vaccination programs in the region. The situation in the UK continues to worsen, with record hospitalizations and more than 1,000 deaths reported overnight. However, despite stringent restrictions, the public has not been following the SOPs meted out by the government.
A lot busier than the first lockdown. There's a lot more people in central London, a lot more commuters on the trains. I think it's just busier in general. I mean, this time in March, the streets were completely empty, no traffic, completely dead, whereas there's people, as you can see, milling around.
Japan has set out a new record by reporting nearly 6,000 new cases as the government prepares to declare a state of emergency in Tokyo and 3 neighboring prefectures. And China has reported its highest number of cases in a single day since July as authorities try to contain a cluster near Beijing. Meanwhile, Australia has again moved the rollout of a coronavirus vaccine to mid to late February.
Now moving on to Pakistan, 50 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. This takes the country's total to 10,511. The health ministry reported 2,482 new infections overnight. There are more than 34,000 active cases in the country. Out of over 495,000 countrywide cases, more than 450,000 people have recovered. The ministry said over 221,000 cases have been detected in the Sindh province, while Punjab has reported more than 142,000 cases so far. The United States has approved a bridge loan of $1.2 billion for Sudan. The loan is part of Washington's aid package to Sudan following its removal from the U.S. terror list. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin signed an agreement that allows the African country to clear World Bank arrears. In a statement, the Treasury said the loan will be provided after Sudan implements conditions agreed upon under a bilateral MOU. It said the African country must also abide by conditions agreed with the World Bank. The statement added Mnuchin commended Khartoum's bold steps leading to its removal from the terror list. This comes after Khartoum announced normalizing ties with Israel under the Abraham Accords. The International Rescue Committee says it is working with Sudan to provide relief to Ethiopians in the refugee camps. Over 60,000 Ethiopians have fled to the bordering state following the conflict in Tigray region. In a statement, it said the refugees need more logistics for the transfer to camps from the border. It pointed out that inadequate provision of emergency aid services has slowed aid delivery. The committee was concerned about the number of unaccompanied children that make half of the refugee population. Hundreds of people were killed as Ethiopia launched a military offensive in the northern region last year. The European Union says it can no longer recognize Juan Guaido as Venezuela's legitimate leader. This comes after the opposition leader lost his position as head of the parliament. In a statement, the EU government referred to Guaido as one of the outgoing representatives of the National Assembly and stressed that they still did not recognize Maduro as president. The bloc also threatened further sanctions against Nicolas Maduro's regime, but the U.S. and Britain still see Guaido as the South American country's rightful leader. Now moving on to the business stories, Pakistan has left India and Bangladesh behind in terms of export growth in November and December. In a tweet, Prime Minister Imran Khan congratulated the nation's exporters for the achievement. In a tweet, Khan said the regional export trends report presented to him by the Ministry of Commerce shows promise. He said compared to 2019, Pakistan managed to increase its exports by 18.3%. The Premier pointed out that during the same period, India and Bangladesh had negative growth. European stocks are trading mixed as investors react to the unrest in Washington and coronavirus developments in the region. The pan-European stock 600 has moved fractionally above the flat line. The CAC 40 in Paris and Frankfurt stocks have also gained marginally, but London's FTSE and Italy's FTSE MIB have edged lower. Earlier, most Asian bourses traded mixed, with mainland Chinese shares and Hong Kong's Hang Seng shedding, while Seoul's Kospi, Japanese and Australian stocks gained. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.